welcome to another episode of SportsVibe. I'm Arnav Sarkar here with Jitesh Ramakrishnan, episode 41 of the podcast. Yeah, I mean it's been a heck of a ride. I'm starting to push towards the big 50. So that should be fun. I was thinking for the 50th episode we could plan something fun, or at the very least we can recap the first 50 and figure out what we're doing going forward. Maybe talk a little bit about how things have been, how things are going. Still 9 more episodes to get there, but yeah, I mean it's March 4th. Spring breaks in a week. It's always exciting. NFL offseason is starting to hit its stride as we get towards the draft. Free agents buzzing. A lot of news just in the last 24 hours in the NFL. We have a lot to get to. And I guess I'd like to start with Jason Kelce retiring. It's probably the biggest news of the day. As a
I don't
big
really,
Eagles fan.
I don't really think
But
that's the biggest news, honestly. I think the biggest news is Mike Evans signing his 2-year,
I
$52
think
million deal.
that's a nice deal. I think he is definitely deserving of the money. He's had like 5 straight or 10 straight,
No, no,
1,000-year season. That's his
10
10th
straight.
straight, right?
Only person to do that is some guy named Jerry Rice. So Mike Evans is in pretty good company.
Exactly.
Well,
Two
Jerry Rice,
year,
I believe, had
52 million. That's a good contract though. I don't even, has there been something like similar? I think I've seen 2 years.
yeah.
I've seen
uh,
52 million.
I
I don't know if
mean,
I've seen
I
that
mean,
in 2 years, but he's deserving of the money.
if we're talking on an AAV basis, we've seen Devontae Adams and we've seen Tyreek Hill and to an extent Cooper Kupp. So yeah, but
It's true.
to be fair,
Big deals.
Mike Evans is what 32, 33 or something, but he's still been balling for 10 straight years, 1,000 yards, double
Oh
digit
yeah,
touchdowns most season, and
30.
one of, if not the
Yeah.
most consistent wide receiver of the past 5 years. And so, really, I think the Bucs making the decision to bring back Mike Evans. Well, there goes my bold prediction from was it last week or a couple of weeks ago, where I said Mike Evans signs with Baltimore. But
Right.
really,
Right.
this gives the idea that Tampa's going to try and stand that playoff to Super Bowl window for another year or two. So, you know, there's now probably a greater probability of Baker coming back, Antoine Winfield signing back, and maybe even Levante David. So, maybe the Bucs are going to try and keep that core for another year or two, just to see where things really are,
They
because
should.
they can push with this. And of course, speaking of
Oh yeah.
quarterbacks, Russell Wilson getting released. That's big news. I
Mm-hmm.
mean,
Huge.
now,
Yeah, it's news.
yes, the Broncos have now become perhaps the most dysfunctional team in the NFL. I mean, we thought teams couldn't get more dysfunctional than the Jets, the Raiders, the Giants. You like
Yeah.
apparently the
Yeah.
Broncos
Off
are
the
giving apparently the Broncos are giving them a run for their money.
I know the whole Russell
I
Wilson situation was such a mess. It was just
no
such a
no
mess. They
he
chose the
got
wrong year to
he
do
got
what they
screwed.
did.
He got
Yeah,
screwed.
because
But I
of the injury guarantee, it was so stupid. They just didn't want to play him when he was playing well. They told him they were gonna, bench him and then or release him after the Chiefs game, which I thought was timing was just awful. And then
it's
they just
pitiful.
completely mismanaged that whole situation, and they just cut
I'm
him loose. They benched him for Stidham last 2 games to absolutely nothing good for the team. They were actually doing well earlier in the season. That is just completely fell apart. And
uh,
it's just
look,
crazy that they called out Nathaniel Hackett and the Jets, and then they did worse than them. They lost to that Jets team. As bad as the Jets were without
Sean
Rodgers, they still lost to that
was
team after calling them out. Sean
like
Payton.
Sean Payton may have gotten the better record as the Broncos coach, but that record is quite deceiving of how the Broncos are organized. Sean Payton did not do a pretty job of coaching the Broncos last season. If he actually, instead of trying to create a spark with Jared Stidham, um, if he instead used Russell Wilson, maybe he would have possibly been in the playoffs. You started 1-5. Broncos won on a 5-6 game winning streak. You ended your streak of misery against the Chiefs. Finally, after 8 straight
Right.
seasons of
Yeah.
getting your tail whooped by Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like
Right.
the Broncos flat out sucked with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson was I mean,
Exactly.
Russell
The
Wilson
first
sucked.
year they did, but not the second
No,
year. Yeah.
no, they sucked last season. This season,
Yeah.
Russell Wilson, he played considerably better. I mean, was he like Russell Wilson of Seattle? Absolutely not. But he played considerably better, and he actually gave the Broncos a fighting chance most games. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's not my business. I'm gonna say Russell Wilson. He's gonna be signed by Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. Yeah, I'm just looking at the odds actually right now, and plus 100 for the Steelers. It's interesting. 350 for the Broncos, even though
There's
he just
betting
got
on this too.
there. Yeah,
Damn, you can bet on
450
everything these
Falcons,
days.
450 Patriots. I don't want to read through the whole thing. The Giants and
I don't
Seahawks.
see
The
us
longest
signing.
odds
I
at
don't. I don't see us
500.
signing Russell Wilson. I don't
The
see us signing
Patriots.
Russell Wilson.
Yeah, probably not. You guys. Yeah, the Patriots are gonna. They're probably gonna draft someone.
I
Even
think we're
draft a
probably
quarterback.
gonna probably Jaden Daniels.
Yeah,
I mean,
man, I hope he falls to the Giants. Like, why? I don't know why we're thinking. I mean, I like JJ McCarthy a lot. Like, as much as I hate Michigan football, like I see his game and like I respect that. But he is not worth the 6th pick. Like, this could be like Daniel Jones part 2 if that happens. And you know what I mean?
Hey, I won't complain about that. I won't complain about that. But
yeah, I mean, we cannot. If anything, wait till the second round, take McCarthy. Fine with that. I'd be somewhat more okay with that. Or Penix.
He's not going to fall till then. He's not going to fall till then.
Yeah, I think I don't know, but that's where I think his value is. I don't know why people are. I mean, I know he was clutch and all, but it could work. That's the thing.
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because a lot of teams, going into the draft this season are very quarterback hungry. You could argue a quarter of the teams in the NFL need a new quarterback.
You're right.
We all know Caleb Williams is probably going to. And it's not like they have It's not like they exactly have any first-round picks to trade up, or they have any first-round picks in general. But it's like we all know the Bears will take Caleb Williams probably number 1. So now the question is, where does Justin Fields go? And GM Ryan Poles has said he wants to do right by Fields, as to not screw any of this up. So I think for some reason I feel like there's a decent chance Justin Fields ends up in Atlanta.
Yeah,
what do you think of that?
It's possible. That'd be an interesting move. Yeah, I mean, I could very well see that. I've seen so many mock drafts that McCarthy was linked to like the Broncos. So like, I don't know. I guess wherever their pick is,
there's no chance.
I've seen the Giants are making. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I could see that. But
that's why I've just seen that in mocks, and then. But
the one question is, what the hell would the Giants do with their $40 million man? That's the one question you got to ask yourself, because no one is going to willingly take on that contract.
Right. Well, either
$40
way,
million for Daniel Jones, no one's going to willingly take that on.
We can unload him like after this season, though, right? Like that's the whole idea, right? So like,
I don't know.
That's what I've heard. Like, like they can unload him after this. I don't know about like how much money. Like the deal would be better if they cut him after next season. Basically, they'd be saving a lot more money. Look, the way I see it with the Giants and Daniel Jones, like there's no point of him not coming back next season. Like whatever it is, like he can recover for his thing, but from his ACL. But you've got to prepare for the future one way or the other. So I mean. Give Daniel Jones one more chance. I think.
5 years. 5 years ago, this guy was the future. 5 years ago, this guy was the future.
Time changes, but I mean, I say with the season he had in 2022. I mean, I think he's worthy of one more chance. That being said, I do think the Giants should get someone behind him, whether that's Jaden Daniels or even if you want to wait till the second round, take Penix or even McCarthy. I mean, like someone to at least back Daniel Jones. So I'll give him, you know what I mean? Like a competition, and if they decide to release him or move on from him after next season, they've got a plan in place. The guy overtakes him, takes his job, so be it. If Daniel Jones somehow proves his worth, like, we just need insurance. That's what I'm saying. In any of these scenarios, the Giants need insurance.
Let me ask you this. What would you say if the G-men sign good old Russ?
Ooh, that would be. See, I kind of wanted that. Like, remember when Aaron Rodgers was like a free agent and Russell's a free agent, I
He
knew it was
wasn't a free
unlikely. I
agent.
was like, that would be
No,
or
Rodgers was
or no,
never a
he
free
wanted a
agent.
trade.
Yeah.
Oh, right. I mean, well, he went to the Jets. He wanted a trade, basically. So, like, I guess maybe I thought of it like free agency because, like, he wanted out. And I was like, that would not be a bad idea. But, obviously he wanted to go to the Jets. Russell Wilson, same idea. I was like, that might be the one situation where I'm okay with, like replacing Daniel Jones with a proven veteran quarterback who's shown they can win, who has that elite level talent. I wouldn't if they went
Yeah,
in that direction.
yeah,
I
but
don't see it as very likely, especially with their quarterback situation right now with the $40 million
and
man. Like, I don't see that happening.
especially
But
given that the Giants have considerably inferior weapons on offense than
yeah,
compared to the
but I mean, the
Broncos.
offensive line's a mess. I mean, any quarterback behind that's going to be running for their life. They have to address that. The
No, so
receivers,
Russell
they have
Wilson would be
some talent
perfect.
there, not a lot. That's true because he scrambles a lot, right? So he runs for his life. That's one of his best attributes, like with the scrambling and the magician stuff we saw in Seattle, like and even Denver a little bit. But I mean, yeah, offensive line terrible. Receivers, they have some that I feel like have been underutilized because the quarterback situation's been so bad. The O-line situations, which has dragged down the whole offense. But I mean, in terms of Hyatt, Waller, I feel like they could be utilized more. But behind Slayton, yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
the Giants are under talented as
Waller's like
well.
Waller's kind of in the retirement bubble or not. He's not sure if he
Yeah,
actually wants to
he's
play. So
that is weird. I don't know. Like, I really hope
I mean, I
we
don't
give that
blame him.
another.
I don't blame him. If I
I don't
was
know what's
forced
been
to be a
going on
wide
with
receiver,
him.
if I was forced to play offense for
Like,
the New York Giants, I'd consider retirement too.
yeah, but it's like he was, in training camp, he went off so much, and then again because the rest of the situation was so bad, like plus he had injury battles and stuff like that. Like he wasn't really able to have an effective season, and neither was Jalen Hyatt. I feel like deep threat like that, like not being able to be utilized. So I mean, I don't know. If I were the Giants, I'd get a quarterback. I could understand the argument for an elite offensive lineman like Joel or Olushanu from Penn State, or even a receiver if like Neighbors. Who are the other guys?
Speaking of
Adunze
tackles,
would be nice. Harrison would
well,
probably be taken, but yeah.
well,
Anyway,
speaking of tackles, Tyron Smith is going to hit free agency. Cowboys are not
I
expected to
heard.
bring him
I
back,
heard.
so that's gonna
That's
be an
very
interesting move.
interesting.
I have a
Yeah.
bad feeling.
Yeah.
I think he's going to sign with Kansas City because Kansas City's offensive line have, without a doubt, their two weakest parts have been their tackle, specifically their
Mm-hmm.
right tackle.
The tackle.
Now, if
Yeah.
I remember correctly, I believe Tyron Smith plays left tackle, if I remember correctly. But hey, not a bad idea. Left tackle. I mean, still the Chiefs'
Right.
weakest
Yeah. He gets a
positions
lot
on
of.
the. Yeah. Okay. So,
Yeah.
but still, the
Mm-hmm.
Chiefs' weakest positions on the line have been both their tackles. So even if you
Right.
solidify one of the tackles, I mean, think
Yeah.
about
We
it. You
can't
got a
have
wall.
can't have
You have a
Donovan
left wall.
Smith and Jawan Taylor and false starts and with all the drop problems. We can't have that stuff going on again next year. So they
What do you mean we?
definitely have to
What do you
address
mean
that
we?
stuff. Oh, right.
What the hell are you talking about?
Bandwagon here. I was
That's
just saying, like,
disgusting.
we like referring to them today, but
Right,
anyway,
right.
Super Bowl champion.
Okay.
Let's go. Yeah. Anyway, back to
No.
back.
You should
So like,
you should shut up for the rest of this episode.
yeah, I don't know. I guess it's the bad habit from the Chiefs being the Eagles and being like going berserk and like about that for past
All
time
right.
and then kind of
Enough.
redoing it again just to have fun this year. But anyway,
All right.
moving
Enough
on.
living in the past now.
Yeah.
Enough living in the past.
Back to reality here. But no, in all seriousness, that'd be a good move to address the tackle spot. One of the few weaknesses, or maybe not
Personally,
few, but one of the weaknesses on that team.
Personally, I want to see Tyron Smith sign with the Bengals so that Joe Burrow isn't in a coma by week 6. They
Yeah,
especially need a
agreed. Because
tackle because they especially need
yeah.
a tackle. I think
Speaking
Lyle
of running,
Collins got released. Yeah, Lyle Collins got released. So wait, did he get
right,
released by the Bengals?
exactly.
I forget. Did he get released by the Bengals? Lyle Collins? I think he did.
He did. That was
Yeah.
I'm seeing that was very early in the season. That was September 12th. He did.
Okay.
I always
Yep.
associate him with the Cowboys.
Well, yeah,
So like
because
I hardly even
Lyle
realized he
Collins.
even went to.
Well, yeah, it's because Lyle Collins was he was a pretty big part of the Cowboys line, uh, and then
Exactly.
signs with the Bengals, and then things don't work out. But I mean, the Bengals do have what, Orlando Brown Jr. or like, I keep getting confused with Orlando Pace Jr. or Orlando Brown Jr. Let me see who they got. But still, like I'd like to see him end up with the Bengals. All right, so yeah, the Bengals have Orlando Brown Jr. Is there even an Orlando Pace Jr.? Yeah, yeah. Orlando Pace plays for Kansas City. Wait,
Hmm.
no, wait,
Interesting.
no, wait. I mean, no, he played for Kansas City, right? Orlando Brown
Who are
played for Kansas.
Orlando Brown or
Yeah,
Pace?
I'm Brown. I'm thinking of Orlando Pace because he was the brick wall on the St. Louis Rams. Like I don't
Uh,
know. I got their
yeah, Orlando
Orlando's
Brown
confused.
Bengals. Yeah, with the Bengals. Anyway, yeah, no, that would be a good move for the Chiefs there to address that. Speaking of the Chiefs, I kind of wanted to talk about their offseason moves, placing the non-exclusive franchise tag on L'Jarius Snead, who is one of their best defensive players on an elite defense that really this season completely took kind of was like a catalyst to them winning the Super Bowl, even above probably like their offense, because and Snead himself making that big play, that changed the complexion of the AFC Championship game by punching the ball out of Zay Flowers' hands. That single-handedly was a swing of 7 points at least. So I mean, but not just one. He was just an elite cover corner the whole year. I believe he only allowed
You
one
you could
touchdown.
ar-
So
you could
it's pretty
you could
impressive.
argue outside of Chris Jones, he's the second most valuable player in the Chiefs defense. And speaking of
Yeah,
which,
exactly.
it looks like there's a chance that Chris Jones is going to be coming back, probably around the $27 million salary range with Kansas City. So that should be fantastic.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I hope they. I mean, well, I hope, but like for the Chiefs' sake, I don't know. It's hard to like walk this line a little bit. It really is. But like, I mean, but Chris Jones is really that Chiefs defense. He's the best player, and they had the kind of the standoff last season. He came back. Hopefully, that goes well. That sounds like about the right price point too. Higher end, but he's definitely a higher end defensive, end. Or a defensive tackle. Not even higher end, one of the best, in the league. And then I guess another move that the Chiefs made is releasing MVS, who dropped a lot of footballs, but he kind of
I
redeemed
don't really
himself in
think that
the AFC
counts.
Championship and Super Bowl. What, like releasing him?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
they'll
mean,
figure
I,
it
don't-
out.
I
They
don't
got
really think
Rasheed
it's a major
Rice, they
move.
got Justin Watson, they got Sky Moore, they got all these other guys.
Just wait. The
Did they
Chiefs are
also
going to
release?
end up. Just wait. They're going to end
They're
up
gonna
drafting
draft the
Xavier.
receiver,
No, no, no. They're going to draft
Xavier
Xavier
Worthy from
Worthy, the
Texas.
dude who ran a four
Yeah,
two. The dude
the
who
four two
ran a
one.
four two
Yeah.
one.
It's gonna be Tyreek part two because
Well, safe
like
to
speed
safe
and
to
all of
say,
that. So
Xavier Worthy, just by his 40-yard dash time alone, he's worthy of a first-round draft choice. I
yeah,
think he probably
and
shot
also
up
he
on
was
a
like
lot
a
of draft boards.
yeah, and and he also was a pretty solid receiver at Texas too. On top of that, but oh man, if the Chiefs get, I think I said this on a previous podcast, if they can get like another speedster, another true number one wide receiver, like they're gonna be set. Like that's like the
All right.
one thing they were missing.
Can you
Maybe other
just
than the
can you
offensive line.
listen? Can you do me a favor right now? Just announce yourself as a Giants fan and just say you're a Chiefs fan because it's clearly obvious.
Yeah, well, once you like a team for 2 years, like it's hard to turn that off, I guess. But sure, yeah, why
You
not?
di-
I'm not
you
shy
di-
about that I like
you disgust me.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to evaluate this. But I mean, no, they'd be set. But I mean, McCall, did they release McCall Hardman also, or I
I
forgot?
don't think so.
No, right? Yeah, I
I
think
didn't see
he's a
anything on
free
that.
agent, right? I didn't see that
Uh,
either. But
he'll probably be back for cheap.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Well, I know he won it off the Jets, and he came back, and then obviously caught the game-winning touchdown against the Niners, and yeah. Anyway, so
What do you think about that? What do you think about the report about him allegedly leaking the Jets game plans?
that's
I think it's kind of
bizarre.
stupid. But
That's who would do. No one would do that. That's crazy. Like, I mean, I know he had like a whole, like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, I know he didn't like what their offense, the Jets offense was doing. He said were around Aaron
what
Rodgers and
offense?
they have a backup plan exactly. But like which I think is fair. But I don't think they would. He would just do that. Leak the game plans. And by the way, the Jets won that game against the Eagles. So I don't know why. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That couldn't have happened. That just there's just no way. Like that's insane.
I don't know. Not up to me though. Whatever.
You don't think so?
I mean, no,
I
I
mean, I
think
don't know.
it's a
I
ridiculous
don't see an
allegation.
NFL player doing that. That's you know what I mean.
I mean,
That's just
this should
crazy.
almost be. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. Like, I think it's a. I mean, it's a ridiculous allegation. That's what I think. But
Yeah,
innocent
exactly.
until proven guilty. But still, I
Right.
think it's sound just by just by the pure sound of it, it seems quite ridiculous.
It really does sound ridiculous, but yeah. Well, I mean, the Chiefs might as well just release Kadarius Tony. I'm sure he's not in their plans for next season after just benching him the rest
Think
of the
about
year.
it. Think about it. Kadarius Tony, key contributor to back-to-back Super Bowls. Last year, he had that pretty darn good
That's
punt
the
return.
pun.
And this year, he contributed by not dropping the ball when it mattered most in the playoffs. So really, like, he's a key contributor for the Chiefs. But I don't know.
Yeah,
I
yeah. By not playing in the playoffs. I mean, sure, but like I mean,
Yeah,
you
Kadrapius
know,
Tony
um,
wasn't there.
yeah, exactly. So that really did help them. It's like sad that the jokes are true about like when he doesn't play, like that's a blow to the other team. You know what I mean? But like in some ways, like
It is.
I guess the Chiefs didn't even think it. Yeah, I mean the Chiefs didn't even think it was worth the risk because like he was literally juggling catches and not even just like a bad bounce. He was like, and then like it ended up as a pit. That happened against the Patriots. It happened against someone else, and he had the offensive offsides thing that Mahomes like cried about. With the against the Bills, and then there was just too
Yeah,
much of that stuff going on. I mean, injuries, like you name it with this guy, man. Like it's just not good. And then he goes on all these bizarre rants that are
yeah.
like not even
Keep in mind
true.
your
He
team.
is
Keep in mind your
a
team
Giants
drafted
fan.
this guy. Your your
They did,
your team drafted
but
this guy.
he was when he's on the field and when I can't even say when he's on the field because that's not true either. But like, I guess it's like when he plays good, he plays really good. And we used to call him like the human joystick, right? He's elusive, he jukes people out, he has the talent, but the dude could not stay healthy. Then he goes on these boosts, then he can't catch the ball. I mean, like you can't have a receiver like doing all those things. Like what's good about that? Maybe you're gonna get a good game out of him every once in a while, maybe, and you can't have that. Like, but I'm glad the Chiefs though they figured out the receiver problems. Rasheed Rice like really, really, really stepped up for them when they needed a guy, and him, and then of course you got Travis Kelce. It's like they figured out what to do in the passing game, and they
All
went.
right,
Their
all right,
identity was more
all
of a
right.
defensive and running
Enough talking
team.
about this.
But
Enough
anyway,
talking about this garbage.
we talked about that a lot in the Super Bowl recap
And by
episodes, and
we mainly you. So enough talking about this garbage.
mainly me because I thought it was important. But like, all right, anyway, so
It's
yeah,
not
I mean,
important.
yeah, well, one other NFL news that I think we should both talk about is Jason Kelsey's retirement. Maybe not the most important news, but it certainly did feel
Well,
like one of the biggest pieces. And I like the guy. I mean, like
and
everyone does.
I
Like
think
no matter what team you're for, you saw the what he wore on his sleeve and the dedication and the man
I
he
think
is on and off the field. Absolutely
speaking of
amazing career. The speech was beautiful, and much respect to a Hall of Fame career. I mean, I really don't have anything
speaking
else
of
to say.
center
Just if anyone,
retirements, yeah, speaking of center
yeah, go
retirements,
ahead.
I think one that went really under the radar was Ryan Jensen retiring with the Bucks.
From the
But
Bucks, right?
uh,
Ryan
yeah, but
Jensen.
Washington released their center Nick Gates a couple of days ago, so I could very well
Oh,
see Philly being
it's
in the
another
market for Nick
former
Gates, or Tampa
guy.
Bay being in the market for Nick Gates. But yeah, I mean, Jason Kelce, what can you say? He manned the Eagles' offensive line for well over a decade, barely missed any playing time, and
Exactly. Yeah.
he's one of the most dependable people on the field. Um, so yeah, I mean, his presence will definitely be missed. And you thought the Eagles' offensive line sucked last year, even though Jason Kelce was doing his best. Um, Jalen
Mm-hmm.
Hurts,
Just wait.
good luck.
Yeah, good luck running the tush push next year. You know what I mean? Like without Jason Kelce, anchoring that, as a
Oh yeah,
center. I mean, you know what I mean? Like they all played a big role in that, like the line, the people pushing,
yeah, but you
and of
notice
course Hurts
whenever the
himself,
tush,
scoring.
you notice how whenever the tush push was directed, uh, Jalen Hurts tended to fall in one of two ways. He tended to fall directly under Jason Kelce, or he went through the left guard. Like very rarely did he
Right.
go through the right side. It's because Jalen Hurts, even though he's a right-handed thrower, he tends to roll out more towards his left. So now that Jason Kelce, I mean, of course he's a center, he's gone. Now he's a little
Right.
bit more exposed on the left guard front. So, I mean, and
Yeah.
considering that the Eagles last season were pretty much a one-trick pony in terms of scoring with the tush push, that might make things a little bit difficult.
True. Yeah, it might be like a lot less effective than it was, without the Hall of Fame center who snaps the ball and also one of the best, blockers. Just absolutely elite at his position. I'm not exactly sure what the Eagles are going to do, like behind, if they have another center, or I heard they might draft one, but probably not going to be as successful. But I guess another, question that another thing I was thinking of about the Eagles and about the NFC East is, the Eagles had a big collapse, towards the end of last season, as we all know, and I would say as we all know and love. I'm not sure how you feel about that, but but they
I
did,
mean, I'm not exactly
and
an
where did
Eagles fan.
yeah, well,
I'm not
you're a
exactly
Patriots
an Eagles
fan,
fan for obvious reason. Well, I just
right?
hate the city of Philadelphia when it comes to sports. I especially hate the Sixers. I definitely hate the
Mm-hmm.
Eagles, but I'd say
Right.
the team I hate the least in terms of Philadelphia is the Phillies
Me
because
too.
that's not
Yeah,
exactly
me
a
too.
rival with me. I mean, but
Exactly.
I do hate the Flyers from the early years of the Bruins during our playoffs fights.
Right.
But of course,
Yeah.
the
It's
Flyers
always
haven't
interesting.
exactly been Flyers haven't exactly been great for the past like maybe half decade or so. But the season under Coach Tortorella, um, you could argue
You're
Coach
starting to.
Tortorella he might be able to win a Jack Adams award with this. Basically, if you're not familiar with hockey award lingo, Jack Adams is kind of like Coach of the Year. And speaking of coaches, Lindy Ruff, the New Jersey Devils coach, he got canned.
Mhm.
I don't know if you saw
I
that.
saw that.
I mean,
I did. I did.
it was kind of not expected, but at the same time, it is a little
Kind
bit
of not
surprising,
expected. Yeah. Yeah.
especially seeing like how half the Devils team is completely injured. And like, of course, you're missing your best defenseman, Dougie Gill. Yeah, Dougie. Um, I don't know why I almost said Dougie Gilmore. Dougie Hamilton. Um, I,
Yeah.
again, like I have no idea why I said that, but uh, I mean, and of course, like um, now teams have had a full year on how to like study and trap Jack Hughes, or well, maybe not trap, how to limit him, and then same with Nico Heischer because he also had his breakout season last year, and of course, if you're around during the early Devils last year when the Devils got off to a really terrible start, the like Prudential Center was chanting fire Landy,"
Yeah, I remember.
and then
They
and then
lost
they
like
went on
2
like an
games, right? And then they won like a million or something.
yeah,
Well, it felt like
and
that. They
then
won like
yeah they won like
great.
nine in a row. They won like nine in a row,
Right. And
and
then
then the
sorry,
crowd starts
Lindy.
chanting.
Right.
No, and then the crowd starts chanting, "Sorry, Landy." I used to watch
Right.
the games. I still remember that from last year. And if I remember correctly,
Yeah,
Lindy Ruff
I
was a
remember
Jack.
all of that too.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, Lindy Ruff was a Jack Adams nominee last year. I think he was a
Wow.
finalist. Of course, Jim Montgomery won the Jack Adams. I think Lindy Ruff was a finalist, if I remember correctly. But like I said, this move it's not exactly surprising, but at the same time, it kind of is because the Devils are just cursed with injuries. Personally, I would have waited to
Right.
see
I know.
like their play. I would have waited to see their playoff status to see
Yeah.
if Lindy Ruff should have
Yeah.
been canned or not. But um, because the Devils are still fairly well within the playoff race. I mean, of course, things are
They're
tight.
in the
Things are
mix,
tightening now.
but yeah.
There's about 20 or so games left in the season for every single team. So of course things are heating
Right.
up. So I think a coach firing this late into the season, especially when a team is in a playoff mix, that can make or break a team. Like we saw this with the Bucks, Milwaukee specifically, after
Mm-hmm.
Adrian Griffin was fired after they went like 30-13 or something. They bring in Doc Rivers, then they go 3-7 on the stretch. So far, it doesn't look like a great hire for Milwaukee, but hey, all that matters is what you can do come playoff time. So, if the Devils are suddenly able to go on like, a massive winning streak, uh, get a good seeding, play well into the playoffs, then this will be looked at successful. But if that doesn't happen, the Devils miss the playoffs while having a late season coach firing. This is certainly going to be a very this might be an unusual off season for the Devils because like I mean what are some coaching like because old coaches tend to get recycled. And the really this goes with any sport. The NBA, the MLB, maybe not necessarily that much with the MLB these days, but the NFL and the NBA and the NHL coaches tend to get recycled after firing. I mean, that's why you have Pete Laviolette. Now he's looking like a Jack Adams with the Rangers. Last year he was with the Caps, and of course they missed the playoffs. He gets fired, um, and now he's doing a darn good job with the Rangers. Peter Laviolette has taken three different teams to the Stanley Cup Finals, if I remember correct. So he has that reputation. Even though he got fired with Washington, there's a reason why he's still in the league. And likewise, there's reasons why Mike Keenan was well before our time. Um, he's considered one of the best coaches in NFL and NHL history, but also one of the most volatile. But he kept getting hired around because of his reputation to turn teams that suck into winners, or at least close to winners. So yeah, so that's why the coaches tend to get recycled. It's purely because of reputation. Now, of course, I don't really anticipate because last year, if you remember, the Rangers coach was Gerard Gallant. I don't anticipate him going to the Rangers, but I don't know who. I mean, of course, the Devils did promote their assistant coach to be the interim coach for the rest of the season. But like I said, I would have waited to see out the rest of the season. If the Devils did miss the playoffs, like with Lindy Ruff still coaching until the end of the season, then yeah, I could agree with the move to move on with Lindy. But especially moving on this late when the team is still trying to chase the playoffs, I don't understand. But like, let's say the Devils started off the season like 2-8-1, then yeah, that would permit a firing right there because it's the beginning of the season. But this late too, especially when the Devils have had that same game plan for 60ish games, how are they going to adjust the new schemings within the last quarter of the regular season? New tactics, new adjustments, like new coaching styles. Like it's going to present problems. I mean, of course, I could be very well wrong in saying this. The Devils go on a magical winning streak and then just get back into the playoffs and all's good and everything. That could very well happen. But personally, I think it was a bad idea to fire Lindy at this time. What do you think?
Um, yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I feel like in the mix of a playoff run kind of wasn't the best time. I mean, they were still kind of inconsistently winning games or kind of taking care of teams they should be and
Yeah,
not beating,
because
actually
the
get
problem
them
with
into
the
the playoff
Devils,
race.
Yeah, because the problem with the Devils is they never had more than, I believe, a 4-game win streak.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big problem. But on the brightest side, they never had more than a 3-game losing streak. So that's the
Yeah, they're
problem with the
kind of like
Devils. They've
in the
been
middle.
straddling mediocrity this season and of course it's not entirely their fault. Teams have had a new year to adjust to the Devils like high flying offense of last season, and of course half the Devils are just completely marred with injuries. So I
Right.
don't
Yeah,
fully blame it
injuries
on
really
the
took a
coaching
toll.
itself. Yeah, of course, especially on Dougie Hamilton. You could argue he's the
Yeah,
most important piece on the Devils that's injured right now. Um,
right. Plus, like
so
Hughes,
yeah, I
Heischer, I think they all missed times. I mean, yeah.
yeah, all of them have missed on. So I don't
Yeah.
exactly fault this uh I don't exactly fault this season on Lindy Ruff, but
Right.
moves happen for a reason.
Yeah, and I feel like the West Coast swing wasn't too great, like losing 4-3 to the Ducks, especially happened like the 5-1 to the Kings. Every time it's like they play a good team, they lose, and then when that happens, fans get tired
Well,
of it,
the
I
Ducks
guess.
are
And
not exactly a
the whole
good
match
team.
exactly,
The
exactly. I mean, they did beat the Sharks, but the Sharks are
the
like one of the worst teams in the
the
league. So
the,
and the Ducks aren't
the
too much for ahead of them either.
Yeah, I mean the Ducks are kind of in the hunt for Macklin Celebrini. Like if they could somehow out lose the Chicago Blackhawks and the San Jose Sharks, then sure they got a good
Yeah,
chance. Well,
right.
of course, there's the draft lottery. Just because you lose the most
Lottery,
doesn't guarantee you'd get Connor
exactly.
Bedard. And of course, the San Jose Sharks learned that last year. But yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
but
and they're
still,
just as bad this year.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah, because at least last year they had Eric Carlson on the team. Now, I honestly can't really name a Sharks player. I mean, I really can't name anyone of the Sharks right now. But anyways, the point digresses. Um, I don't know, and I remember saying like the Devil should be Stanley Cup contenders at the beginning of the season. I did say that, but I said I could see them winning a Stanley Cup by like 26 or 27. So far with the with basically the hello and goodbye of Lindy Ruff, I'm not sure where the Devils will turn. So it, there's a lot of interesting prospects right now.
Yeah, for in terms of the coaching search, there's a lot of yeah, that's always a question, internally, externally. I guess another, kind of wanted to, I guess steer this back to the NFL for a quick second, but what does the NFC East look like next year? Do the Eagles kind of figure things out after the epic collapse that they had? Or, the Cowboys, like the way, they flamed down the playoffs. Do they have another good regular season? Or how far up can the Giants and Commanders get in 1 year if they, do get good quarterbacks? Like, how does this exactly look? Because obviously Jason Kelce
Well,
retired, but I feel like even besides that, like the Eagles had a big fall off, and can they recover from that? Can they go back to their form from
because
the earlier in the year, or do they find a new way to win, like like the Chiefs have done? Like how does this? Yeah, I still feel like Eagles
person,
and Cowboys are the two
per,
teams, but I feel like
personally,
it could be interesting.
no, I think the Cowboys reign supreme at the division. I don't question that. I
Yeah, because
think
I
the
feel like the
Eagles.
playoff game. I don't want to say it was
Yeah,
a fluke, but like I feel like they still had the most talent.
I
They
mean,
still do, and they
here's the thing.
still
Here's the
played
thing.
the best. Even though they
There's a
lost the games
reason
that
that
they did.
there's a reason the Cowboys have gone 12-5 for 3 straight seasons. It's because they're good. Well,
Then yeah, they
it's
are.
because
The
they're good in
defense
the
good. The
regular
offense,
season. But
yeah,
Eagles,
they have
I
to
could
figure
see them straddling around 500 because, in my opinion,
it more
it's a lot
so.
hard. In my opinion, it's a lot harder to replace a good offensive line piece than it is to replace a quarterback. I firmly, I mean, I
It's
firmly believe
interesting.
that.
It's so hard
I mean,
to get a
of course,
quarterback, but I do.
of,
I can see
of
that.
course,
Yeah.
this is a bit strict. This is a bit strange coming from me because, of course, I've seen our quarterback play dwindle and that
Right.
might be the understatement of the year ever since Tom Brady left
Hmm.
us. But still, like like Mac Jones was still able to survive in his rookie season and do quite well because he still had a good offensive line. Like Trent Brown was there, and then I believe this was also before Shaq Mason was traded. We still had David Andrews, and I mean, of course, this was year one without Joe Tooney, but still, like we still had like a good offensive line for Mac to have a good pocket presence. So that's why I'm saying that. But I mean, of course, that's just one example right there. But actually, no, I can point out another example. Last year in Tom's last season, when they were trying to run it back, Ryan Jensen just blows out his knee, and then like it seems like every other day a new Bucks offensive lineman was down, and like they're just trying to hold that offensive line with duct tape and glue and whatever they could find, and of course, Tom Brady, like, even though the Bucks weren't exactly great on offense in his final season, Tom Brady still had a good season with a horrible offensive line. And, you know, of course, you remember Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl when he didn't really have when he was kind of missing like a couple important pieces. He got his brains turned into a smoothie against the Bucks defensive line. And
Yeah,
lo and
that
behold,
Super
lo and
Bowl
behold,
really taught me how important offensive line play is.
exactly.
Like,
And
just seeing the way, he could do anything. He can make it, and
yeah,
yet it wasn't good enough. Because
lo
if
and
you don't have an
lo and
offensive
behold,
line, you can't win.
yeah, lo and behold, the Chiefs get Joe Tooney, and then
Exactly.
and here you go. Now Mahomes has an extra 2 Super Bowl rings. Of course, Joe Tooney didn't play in the Super Bowl against the 49ers, but still, like again,
Yeah, reliable piece.
the presence of a good offensive line piece is extremely underrated in today's game. The loss of any offensive lineman is it's truly like you can truly make or break not just a quarterback, but an entire offense. And
Oh
that's
yeah,
why I stand by
yeah,
that. That's why I stand by that. I think offensive linemen are
yeah.
they're truly the most underlooked players in the game today.
Oh yeah.
Like
Because without
like
them,
there's a
like nothing else. Quarterback
no
play,
why
there's that which could impact. It's
exactly
sort of the
what
Giants. Like I mean, I've been all season, but you know what I
no
mean.
let me show you
And
this.
completely
Let me show you
undermined.
this. When Jared Goff got traded to the Lions, like he is basically sent to die by the Rams. And of course, who do they draft? They draft Penei Sewell. And what has he been? He's been a beast. He's been an anchor for that Detroit line. Of course, they also have Frank Ragnow, who has been a great center, and like he's been a critical piece of the Detroit line. But you bring in one more anchor, one more man to block for you. Another dude, he's got strength. He's got quick feet. He's got raw power and everything. That's Penei Sewell right there. 2 years now he's been with Detroit. Look at where the Lions' offense have been. They've been like top five both for the past 2 seasons for a reason. Why? Because the offensive line gives Jared Goff time to pass. He gives timing for Montgomery to activate the run. He gives time for the receivers to get down the field and improvise just in case if a play gets broken up.
Mm-hmm.
The offensive line is the MVP for every single offense. I stand by
Yeah,
that.
and they never get talked about. And yeah, because it's like without them, like like that Super Bowl describes it perfectly. And we've seen so many teams, without good offensive lines. Like quarterback won't have time to throw. That could impact receiver performance. The running backs
Exactly.
won't have the hole. So you can give them a lot of credit, and they deserve it too. And maybe they're also underrated in their own way. I mean, without the offensive line, they won't be getting those kinds of holes either. They won't have that
Exactly.
production on the ground that keeps
There's a
offenses
reason
going
why
when the passing game.
there, there's a reason why Le'Veon Bell was like the most dynamic player on the Steelers. It's because the Steelers had an amazing offensive line.
Mhm.
That's why.
Known
And
for
like
exactly, and he was known for his patience, and to have that kind of patience to
and
find the hole
hmm,
that's
hmm.
created by the
and
line.
let's see
You know what I
what happens when Le'Veon Bell goes from one of the best offensive lines in the NFL in the Pittsburgh Steelers and signs with the Jets, one of the notoriously worst offensive lines in the NFL. Huh. Le'Veon Bell suddenly doesn't look like Le'Veon Bell anymore. I
mean?
wonder why.
Yeah, I know
Exactly.
it was such
The
a shift.
offense no,
Yeah,
the offensive line is the most underlooked position. Well, underlooked set of positions, I should say. In You
right.
could argue in perhaps all of sports. you really could argue this. I'm not saying this because I'm a pure
Yeah.
NFL fan. Of course, I would say like these days, like you know, when you're watching hockey, you ask like your little kid, who do you want to be when you grow up? A lot of people say, I want to be McDavid, I want to be Crosby, I want to be McKinnon, I want to be Kucherov, I want to be Bergeron. Like, I mean, of course, Bergeron retired last year. Not a lot of people are saying like, I want to be a defenseman, like Cale Makar, like Bobby Orr. I mean, of course, Bobby Orr is like way before our time, but it's like not a lot of people are saying I want to be like Cale Makar. Like, you could argue defenseman is perhaps the most underrated position in hockey, although there are lots of people that want to be goalies, and especially in the NBA, no one these days wants to be a center. Well, at least a traditional center.
Oh,
Traditional centers are dead, and
yeah.
and
Modern centers
the
are in it.
MLB
Like, I mean,
and the
yeah.
MLB. Well, there's really value everywhere across. It doesn't matter where you are on the baseball diamond.
Right.
So
Yeah.
maybe the MLB gets
I
canceled
could
out in
see
that
the
scenario. So I would
see the argument
sincerely argue.
there.
Yeah, so I would sincerely argue any place on the offensive line, any place, is the most underlooked position in all sports.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue that. I mean, because even I don't know, maybe yeah. I'll further value, I would say. So I'm thinking like special teams, but at least they get the credit. Well, the kicker
Spe-
does, and maybe
no,
at least they
special
get the
teams.
credit when they win and not the blame when they lose. But that's another
Or,
underrated
I mean,
position too.
well, like my man Matthew Slater, perhaps the best special teams player ever. I mean, I'll tell you what, he got an awful lot of love in New England, and for
Yeah,
a very good reason, because he was damn good at doing his job. Of course, like
yeah. I remember he
the
was a
Vinatieri.
special teamer every year in the Pro Bowl, and I was just like,
Exactly.
special teamer, like gunner,
Of course,
that
like
kind of stuff.
of
Not even
course,
like
like
the kicking game.
yeah, of course, like the Vinatieri's, the
Oh
Guskowskis,
yeah.
the Tuckers,
Hmm.
they'll always get the credit because they're the ones making the game-winning kick. But
Right.
but
But if they
the
lose, like, oh,
gunner,
hell,
the gun
yeah,
exactly like
exactly.
so. I don't believe Tyler. I don't. I mean, sure, Tyler Bass will of course get a lot of flack for missing the kick against the Chiefs, but it's like, I mean, if you looked at that game, Josh Allen was being a bit stupid with the ball in the final drive. But anyways, point digressing. Point
Yeah, he
digressing.
was playing hero ball.
Special
Yeah, yeah,
yes, special teams are underlooked until they quote unquote lose the game for the team, and the offensive line
right.
they are perhaps the most
Even then,
undervalued. No, not
yeah,
undervalued. They are the most underlooked set of positions across all sports. I will
because even if
die on
they
that
do
hill.
win, they won't get the credit. That's the difference. At
Exactly.
least in the kicking game and things like that, they'll get the credit. In the line play,
Here, let me
they
ask you.
won't get the
Here,
credit, and
here,
they'll get flagged. So
let me
yeah,
let me put a question on you right now. Who, because we can always answer who's the greatest quarterback of all time. We can always answer who's the greatest linebacker, corner, safety, wide receiver, running back, and all that stuff. Who would you say is the greatest offensive lineman of all time? Me, I'd say Anthony Munoz with the Cincinnati Bengals. But how many people would say? First of all, no one even asked who's the greatest center of all time, who's the greatest
exactly.
guard, who's the greatest tackle.
Like you
No
never
one
even
ever
think
asked that
about these things.
because most NFL fans don't give a damn about the contributions of the offensive line. Instead, what they'll say
Yeah,
is, "Oh, the offensive line screwed us. 17 sacks
exactly.
in 3 quarters. That's why our quarterback can't throw. It's because our line sucks." But when the quarterback throws for
Mm-hmm.
500 yards and 73 touchdowns in a game,
Look how
the
he
offensive
is.
line
Yeah,
doesn't get any credit.
right. So in a way, it is kind of similar to special teams where they get all the blame and none of the credit. But at least in special teams, they do get the credit when it's kind of deserved. And offensive line, let's just like they get all the blame and none of the credit. So yeah, no, I completely understand your point. It's a very valid argument as it pertains to the Eagles. I guess that's a big piece they're losing. I do
Oh
think,
yeah, that
yeah,
was one
Cowboys.
big
Like you
circle.
said, I know that was a big tangent that we just went on, but that's where it started. But I mean, in terms of the pecking order, I think the Cowboys they just have to figure
I
it out in the playoffs. But they're
listen.
definitely the
The,
most talented
here
team,
here's what
best
I'll
team in the
say.
division.
The Eagles will miss Jason Kelce a lot more than the Cowboys will miss Tyron Smith. Dallas
There you
has
go.
always had a good
That's
offensive line.
yeah,
They've
because
been able
Dallas
to replace
has always had
pieces.
a good offensive line. Yeah, Philly, yeah, exactly. Like how you're not going to be able to replace Jason Kelce just like that. And I think that's going to have a huge impact. That could have an impact on the tush push. That could have an impact on Hurts. That could have an impact on the offense. And God knows what's going to happen with the rest of their guys and playmakers. I think DeAndre Swift might be done, who I actually thought was a really good back for them. And, but in any case, I mean, we'll see. I still feel like they're probably second, and then we'll see. It's probably going to be the same thing, like Cowboys, Eagles, Giants, Commanders in that order. But now it's like, well, it can
Maybe.
get weird, but yeah.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
because
it could be.
the NFC East is notorious for not having a division repeat winner, right?
That's true. So then, in that
For
case,
the past 20,
maybe.
well, I guess that means Philadelphia is winning it.
Yeah, well, if it's not Dallas, it's not going to be anyone else. So I mean, well, we'll see. We'll see what happens there. I mean, it's weird that Giants got weirdly fake good at the end. The Eagles got so bad, and I don't know. Like the whole division, the end of the year was strange, and then of course both Eagles and Cowboys flaming out in hilarious fashion. But Cowboys probably much more so because it was unexpected. But I guess one final point I wanted to make about the NFL. I heard there's rumors of an 18-game season.
I
They're
think
going
that's
to
a
push it, I
horrible
guess,
idea.
another bye week.
I think that's
It's
a
just wear
horrible
and tear
idea.
on more. It just takes away from the whole player safety stuff, and I don't know.
Don't be surprised.
It's money, you know. It's you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well,
We're gonna
don't
have
be
a
surprised
20
when
game
more
season.
don't be surprised when more star players end up tearing their Achilles, splitting their ACLs, have fractured vertebrae, and all that stuff. And especially because there's less preseason games to condition y'all. Like, don't be surprised when that happens.
Yeah, there's one less, and the star players, the starters, not even star players, will hardly play. They might play a series, in one game. It used to be like week 3 of the preseason, the starters would kind of get some run, but yeah, it's whatever now. I mean, yeah, you're right. In terms of like that 18th game, like what do you think they're gonna do in terms of like now they have this NFC AFC like cross scheduling where they pair up like the first place teams in opposite conferences? Like, do you think they're gonna do something like that again, or I don't know? I haven't really read too much into this scheduling.
Of course they will, because the NFL is a business
because
first.
You want competitive matchups. So you want to see the best and the best. You want even in the middle and bottom, you want to see them matched up against similar opponents when you can. Obviously, you're gonna have your divisional games. You're gonna have everything else. I think one thing when they expanded to 17, one thing I personally wanted to see was like, having like a geographical like matchup like every year, so like, so like Giants, Jets in the regular season every year, Eagles, Steelers. Like if they could have like one matchup like that per season, maybe you could do it at like a neutral site to make it interesting, or maybe not, or maybe just rotate the home site. But I feel like that'd be cool to see those, because those are big games when they happen. Like as much as you might not even really consider the other team main rivalries to in-state teams.
I'll tell you what, Cowboys Texans would also be interesting.
That would be a good one too. Yeah.
Of course, Dallas and Houston are about 4 hours away or so, but still, we had the Battle of Texas in the ALCS last season, and that was a lot of fun to watch, especially Game 5. Exactly. That was a lot of fun.
And it's always interesting with Cowboys Texans, because like the Cowboys, they have the most national fan base. Like the stadiums up in the Northeast. Like forget about Houston. They'll be there flooding it, and then for the other way around though, if it's a Cowboys home game, like forget about it. But then again, like the Texans, like they went farther than the Cowboys, and there's a whole roast about that. So you know what I mean? That could be an interesting.
The
game there.
Here's the thing: the Houston Texans were created as a franchise in 2002. They've had more playoff wins than the Dallas Cowboys since 1996. The Texans have had 5 playoff victories, and the Dallas Cowboys have had 4 in this century.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And the Houston Texans didn't even exist 20 years ago.
Yeah, and the Lions went 0-16. They still made the conference championship before the Cowboys did. So it's just jokes won't continue as long as the Cowboys have their epic collapse.
Almost every year, so. Almost every team in the 21st century has made the conference championship game, except for Houston, Cleveland. Yeah, I think except for those teams. Except for Houston and Cleveland, and Dallas, of course. Every single team since the turn of the century has made the conference championship game.
Yeah,
I don't think
exactly.
I'm wrong, and
I think
I
for
don't think
Detroit,
I'm
this
wrong on that.
I
Well,
could
Detroit
check.
made it
Yeah.
last season.
Right.
Detroit
Yeah.
made it last season. So
They were one. Yeah. I think you might be right about that. I mean, yeah.
I don't think I'm wrong about that.
Right. Yeah. You're probably right. I'm trying to look it up
I,
quick.
I mean, come on, like Pats, obviously yes. Jets, yes. Oh wait, the Dolphins. Yeah, those stupid Dolphins. They didn't
Uh,
make it either. I'm not. I'm not surprised though. I
mm,
mean, the Dolphins haven't even won a
another
playoff game
regular
in this
season.
century. No, they haven't even won a
Yeah.
playoff
Yeah.
game this century. So that's a bit more hilarious.
Right. I think well, yeah, there's probably a few in there, but most of them have. And with the regular season success of the Cowboys, it makes them more interesting that they probably had a lot more regular season success than most, and they still haven't. Yeah, I'm reading the list of teams who have never been to a conference championship, and
Well,
we have
that's
the
never.
Lions.
That, that that's never. That's
That's
slightly
never.
different from what
Oh,
I've read.
this
I
is an
said
old article because yeah, never mind. That's not gonna work because the
I,
Jaguars
I
made
said
it. The Jaguars
yeah
even
I
made it, man. So
yeah I said from the
yeah,
turn of the century. So
yeah. So I guess yeah. Anyway, it's a tough thing to look up, but yeah, I mean, not too many. I think you might be right because in this list they have the Jaguars who made it, the Lions who made it. We're down to the Browns, Texans, the Cardinals made it, right? Or
yeah,
they
the
went to
Cardinals
Super
last made the
Bowl. I
NFC
mean,
Championship
they
in
lost the Super
2015.
Bowl. Right, right,
They
right,
last made it in
exactly. And yeah,
2015.
it might just be the Cowboys and the Texans and the Browns and the Fins. So yeah, anyway, that's Dallas for you. But 18 game season, yeah, not the greatest idea. I feel like it'd be nice to have the day after the Super Bowl off if everything gets pushed back a week and you have President's Day Monday because everyone's
What's those?
it's late night. The
I,
game
I,
went on late
I,
last year. Like it would be nice to kind of have that like a holiday. So
with
people
how
can really enjoy their Super Bowl
I mean, come
parties and
on,
whatnot.
with how ridiculous this entire thing is. Soon enough, the Super Bowl is going to be played in March. I think that's a terrible idea.
Yeah, it's like the week before like March Madness goes on, like they'll have the Super Bowl, they'll have like a 20 game regular season. Who knows? I don't know.
I
College
think it's a
football is
horrible idea.
doing 12 game playoffs, and they already want to expand to 14. They haven't even gotten to 12 yet. So, anyway, that's football for you. I guess real quick, before we sign off here, LeBron James reached 40,000 career points this past was it Saturday? I think that's cool
Even
recognition.
better that even better that in a loss. Um, like
I
and
was about to
I
say
love that.
another loss have crashed all the Lakers. Every game against the Nuggets, it was something or the other. It was opening
I mean,
night after the sweep, another reminder.
it's
Kobe statue
listen,
night, Nuggets win. And this
it's
night, the
it,
Nuggets win. It's just like the Nuggets
it's
all go
amazing
down.
how
It's that simple.
I mean, it's amazing how many points LeBron can get to when the NBA is just gifting him all those free throws. So yeah, but still, first player to score 40,000 points. In today's NBA, I'd probably score like maybe 5,000. That's a joke. I don't have any NBA skill. But speaking of the
I get what you're
speaking of the
saying.
NBA,
Yeah.
yeah, speaking of the NBA, the Boston Celtics become the first team to beat three opponents by 50 points each. The
By 50.
Pacers, your beloved Nets, and now the
I
Warriors.
know. Yeah. Yeah. But hey, we're not the only team. We were the second. There's one more, and though I was watching some of that Warrior game too. Oh man, it was almost they were up by 50 by the end of the first half. I mean, like
It was like
forget about
80.
like a 50-point
It
blowout.
was like 80. It
It
was
was
like
82-38,
82-32 at halftime.
something like that. It was like 80. I think it was 82-38. But yeah, like
82-38 or
pretty
something
much
like that.
a 40-point like whatever that was already almost at the half. They were down by that much. I mean, that's might even be worse than what happened to the Nets. But yeah, that's kind of a point I wanted to talk about, though. It's not just these big wins, though. The Celtics are rolling. They're consistent. They're good. They're talented. I mean, last year's Celtics team, obviously they lost to the Heat. They were good. They weren't this good. I mean, this Celtics
There's
team has
only
lost 12 games all season.
there's only
They're
one thing
48 and
that can
12.
beat
I
the
mean, that's
yeah,
insane.
and It's funny because the 2007-2008 Boston Celtics at the 60-game stretch were also 48-12. But there's only one thing.
Yeah, I was seeing.
There's only one thing that can stop the Celtics from winning the finals. There's only one thing: themselves.
I thought you were gonna say like the Miami Heat again, come from like
No,
the seventh seed.
it's
But
pure.
I
No,
don't see
it's
it this
purely
year though. I
themselves.
don't see it this year. It is themselves. It's absolutely themselves. Because when they play well, they're absolutely dominant. No one can beat them. I mean, I think maybe in the East, I don't think anyone can beat them. I don't think the Bucks are on that level. They certainly haven't played like it for most of the season, especially with Doc Rivers. The Knicks are a fun story this year. I feel like that could be a nice series with the Celtics.
I
The
mean,
Celtics beat them.
depends on how healthy Jalen Brunson can be.
Exactly, and Julius Randle. And then as for the Cavs, I mean that's been another great story, but I don't know. I feel like the Celtics would outlast the Bucks and the Cavs and the Knicks. Like those are probably the closest competitors, and not even going to count the Sixers in that one. But yeah, those are probably the next best teams, and I feel like the Celtics would have no problem. They'd maybe take the Bucks and the Cavs, maybe take them to 6 if everything breaks right. And I just feel like the Celtics are on another level. And in the West, I feel like the only team that can, maybe I don't even know about the Clippers, but I feel like the Nuggets are the only team who can really potentially beat them in a 7-game series in the entire NBA, just because of their their championship pedigree. They're also playing the high level, and I think they could turn it up one level further in the playoffs as they
Anyways,
did last season.
I think the Wolves and the Thunder are a little too young and inexperienced to. No, I think they're a little too young and inexperienced to go on a truly deep playoff run. So that's what I think. But
yeah,
we live in the sports world. We live to be surprised, and I think that's a good way to end it right there. We live to be surprised, whether it's in the regular season or the postseason.
Yeah, we do love to be surprised. I mean, it's surprising me that the Thunder and the T-Wolves are still first and second in the loaded Western Conference with all of those talent, all those teams, all the teams. I forget about the Warriors and the Lakers, but I mean the Nuggets and the Clippers. I feel like the playoff experience will take over there. But I mean, yeah, we do love to be surprised. That being said, I'll be very surprised if the Celtics don't win the championship this year. And I think you are right. The only thing that can stop them is themselves. I don't see another Cinderella run by the Heat this year, but then again, no one saw it last year. I just doesn't feel like it. I think, and on top of that, I think the Celtics, they were good last year. They are on another level where they cannot be, if they play their A game, like no team in the NBA can touch them. And maybe the only team I could see giving them a good one is the Denver Nuggets, where I think that's the only series that I think would even be in doubt. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. A lot of NBA left to go. Approaching the stretch run, about 1 month from now, NBA playoffs, maybe a month and 10 days or so. NBA and NHL playoffs will both be underway. Best time of the year.
Spring training will stop, and we'll finally have real baseball.
We will by the end of this month, so that will be exciting. And then comes the NBA and NHL playoffs. March Madness is about 2 weeks away. I'm very excited for that, although it doesn't seem like Rutgers gonna be able to make that. But definitely gonna be some fun times ahead in sports. But yeah, great catching up with you guys about all the NFL news. A lot of NFL news just in the last day, and then of course we talked about the Lindy Ruff firing, some the 18-game season, some NBA news as well, with LeBron's 40K, and of course the domination by the Celtics, which I feel like just had to be talked about because how good they've been playing. But yeah, I mean that's gonna do it for this episode of SportsVibe. I'm Arnav signing off for Jitesh Ramakrishnan, and as always, we will see you next week.